Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And ever since the rapid emergence of artificial intelligence, there has been a lot of concern about how it'll affect jobs. Now that's entirely understandable. Every time new technology emerges, the impact on the job market is a major concern. People do worry about whether their jobs are at risk, and it's not at all an unfounded worry with respect to AI. Because in the past, entire industries have been upended by technology. Just ask anyone who worked in the horse and buggy industry, if you can find any. But discussions about AI in the job market is complicated and nuanced. I am certainly not qualified to talk about it in great detail. Plus, AI is a relatively new industry that has only recently become mainstream. Much of the global economic system is just starting to adapt to it. But despite my lack of qualifications, I am confident in making a few prescriptive statements on the topic. They may be more hopeful or speculative in nature, but as someone who has a keen interest in AI and its many impacts, I think they're worth taking seriously. Because, regardless of your feelings towards AI, there are some jobs and industries that should be disrupted. And there's one job in particular that I feel needs it more than most. That job, ironically enough, is that of CEO. Now, I know I'm not the first person to suggest something like this. Many others have raised the possibility of AI replacing CEOs, even if it's framed as a joke. But rest assured, I'm being dead serious in suggesting this. And I think it's an idea that we should all take seriously, especially as AI systems continue to improve. But before I even delve into the technical aspects of an AI CEO, I want to first offer a quick personal anecdote. A while back, a relative of mine retired after a productive 40-year career in the corporate world. And in that time, they worked for multiple CEOs at multiple companies. Each one had their own style, personality, and vision. Some were much better to work for than others, and some were more effective than others. And those two qualities weren't always mutually exclusive. But in recalling their career, this same relative offered one particular insight. Every single CEO they had ever worked for was a textbook narcissist. Now, that might not surprise anyone who has ever worked in the private sector. Even if you don't work for a CEO, most people can relate to having a boss. And most people have probably had at least one terrible boss in their professional lives. But I think it says something about the nature of business, society, and the economy that narcissists tend to land a job like CEO. On some levels, it makes a twisted bit of sense. Key among the traits of a narcissist include being selfish, overconfident, and egotistical. They often believe themselves to be the smartest person in any given room, even if that room is populated by people with far better credentials. They also have a diminished capacity for empathy and guilt. They are willing to fire employees who have been with an organization for years, thereby ruining their livelihoods, their futures, or even their health. A narcissist has no problem hurting others for their own personal gain. On top of their exceedingly inflated self-worth, they're only ever concerned about their own personal world, and anything outside that doesn't really matter to them. Now, that's not to say that all narcissists are psychopaths, but it is fair to say that most psychopaths are narcissists. There is even some research documenting a correlation between being a CEO and being a psychopath. That link, even if it's relatively weak, is still relevant. Because in general, excess narcissism is not a quality you want for anyone in a position of power. And in our current society, CEOs tend to be more powerful than most elected officials. It doesn't take an elaborate conspiracy theory to believe that wealthy, well-connected CEOs have a major influence on society as a whole. But even if we ignore the politics, and we shouldn't, narcissistic CEOs are damaging in countless other ways. It's not just that they routinely get obscene compensation packages that pay them millions of dollars, even if they do a terrible job. Their role, coupled with their self-serving mentality, means their priorities are rarely aligned with that of the company, the workers, or their customers. Another relative of mine provided plenty of anecdotes in that regard as well. They once said that a CEO they had been working with for years kept lamenting on whether they'd have enough money to retire. But this person was getting paid well north of 7 figures yearly. He'd also been working so long that his net worth put him comfortably in the 1% tax bracket. So just take a moment to think about what kind of life someone like that must live. Think about how much money they must spend regularly in order to think that they'll run out, even if they make millions a year. How is someone like that supposed to relate to anyone making minimum wage, or even a median level income? there are probably many more detrimental effects to having narcissists as CEOs. But this is where I want to bring AI into the equation. Because of all the jobs it could potentially replace, I think CEO might be the most impactful. To illustrate, consider how existing AI chatbots and AI programs operate. Now, they're not at all sentient, and as of the making of this video, they're not at all close to being as intelligent as an average human. However, they excel in a number of key areas that gives them the edge over any human CEO. For one, they're capable of analyzing vast swaths of data, be it financial, scientific, or just general knowledge. They can analyze trends, markets, and organizational structures at a level no human mind can ever hope to match, narcissistic or otherwise. And, most importantly, they can use that data to make predictions and inferences that are less prone to bias or human error. That's not to say they're completely objective. Every AI to date has had its share of flaws, from hallucinations to unintended biases to inadequate training data. But the absence of human wants, needs, and egos means it's far less prone to the incentives that a narcissist would be inclined to follow. An AI is not nearly as concerned with how big its yacht is, how many tax loopholes it can exploit, or how furnished its office is on the top floor of a big building. And in a role like CEO, an AI wouldn't have to worry as much about performing the kinds of tasks that would require complex physical labor. It's not flipping burgers, building houses, driving cars, or performing surgery. It may not even need a physical body to do the job it needs to do. Because in general, a CEO's role is to make decisions regarding the direction, structure, and operation of a company. They also require a general awareness of the market in which the company operates. Whether it's for-profit or not-for-profit, the CEOs are the ones with the final say. In times of prosperity and poverty, the organization runs through them. When there's a crisis, they're the ones who are responsible. And when there's an opportunity, they're the ones who must chart a course for pursuing it. It is, without a doubt, a stressful and complex role. You could even argue that, at a certain point, being a CEO is not a role that any one human can effectively perform in the long term. Because even good CEOs can only serve in that role for so long. They'll either retire or get ousted by someone who is far more likely to be a narcissist. And whatever good the past 50 CEOs end up doing, it can all be completely undone by one bad CEO who takes their narcissism to an extreme. But in principle, an AI could be trained to maximize the traits and decision-making skills of only the best CEOs. At the same time, it can also be conditioned to minimize the tendencies of bad CEOs, be they narcissists, psychopaths, or just plain inept. And if this AI is capable of regularly improving itself, learning from every mistake and analyzing new data as it comes in, then it could essentially function as the perfect executive. It never needs to retire, never needs to schedule lengthy golf trips, and it's far less likely to sexually harass the interns. That's not to say there would be an upgrade on all fronts, but again, just think about what most CEOs do on a day-to-day basis. They sit in fancy offices, look over multiple computer screens, make decisions based on current data, and negotiate deals. Sure, it varies from company to company, but a lot of it comes back to analyzing new data, making informed predictions, and managing issues that affect the organization. And these are all things that an AI can do without superhuman intelligence. And unlike narcissists, they're actually capable of improving over time and acknowledging their mistakes. I can personally attest to how important this quality is, because in one of the first jobs I ever had, the biggest challenge I often faced was convincing those in executive suites that they made mistakes. And even if they admitted as such, they still expected everyone under them to fix those mistakes and even take the blame on occasion. But a capable, well-trained CEO wouldn't have that issue. If you give it data that proves a decision was a mistake, it will process that without a major personality defect resisting it. Ideally, it would also learn from that mistake and make better decisions in the long run. But therein lies the biggest obstacle and the primary reason why AIs probably won't be replacing CEOs anytime soon. Aside from most CEOs enjoying all the power, wealth, and access their position affords them, there is currently no AI system that has been trained in this capacity. It's also not entirely clear how such an AI would be trained in the first place. It also might not be wise to train an AI on most existing CEOs. That would just ensure that a lot of narcissistic traits would be incorporated into the AI, and the last thing society needs is a powerful AI with all the faults, frailties, and ego of a narcissist. But even if such an effort would be difficult, it's not at all impossible. It's just a matter of incorporating the right kind of data into an AI and providing it with the right framework for a capable CEO. Perhaps such a system could be placed in various economic simulators where it would run fictional companies. By using real-world economic data, this AI would learn to navigate certain situations in business environments, gradually improving its decision-making skills every step of the way. Or maybe an AI could be fed data on past business trends for certain sectors of the economy. Then, without knowing which CEO made which decisions, it would try to predict the best possible business plan for a given period. Afterwards, their effectiveness can be measured with more real-world data to see if it aligned with successful companies. I also think it would be important to train this AI with data on frauds and failures, because there are plenty of examples of CEOs who were far worse than your typical narcissist. They didn't just make selfish decisions, they committed outright crimes that destroyed companies, workers, customers, and so much more. So any capable AI should be trained to detect the signs of such operations. That way it can be aware of future Enrons and WorldComs before they happen. There are probably numerous other considerations for an AI CEO that I could list. Plenty involve knowledge and situations that I am not qualified to comment on. The reason I'm bringing this up is because, at the moment, there's not much most people can do about a narcissistic CEO. They're not elected officials that we can vote out. And most of the time, they only leave their position when they're forced to. And as a result, there's literally no incentive for the current system to change. Good CEOs get rewarded, sure, but bad CEOs face little to no ill effects when they fail. Instead, those ills are often felt by workers, consumers, and society at large. Regardless of your politics, it's hard to argue that this current situation is tenable. AI might not be the perfect solution to the issue of narcissistic CEOs, but as technology improves, and as the economy evolves in increasingly complex ways, it really makes no sense to entrust big, world-changing decisions to unelected human CEOs. And if many of those CEOs are narcissists, then how can we ever expect them to make decisions with our shared well-being in mind? So, if AI is replacing anyone's job, let's at least make sure it supplants one that tends to embolden humanity's worst traits. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, take care and stay safe.